Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning Jump by the mighty Van Halen. So first off, I got to give big props to the boys for doing an amazing band performance. So big thanks to Evan, to Sage, and to Steven. So amazing job, super fun to listen to, super fun to watch. Now, as I've been working on the ukulele arrangement, just learning it, getting it ready for this lesson, I gotta say that it has been a ton of fun playing it as a solo piece. It's just a solo ukulele piece. So just because we presented it as a band arrangement, don't feel like you have to play it only in the band setting. It can work either way. Both ways are super fun, rocking out with the band or playing it as a standalone ukulele piece. So let's jump into talking a little bit about this lesson. Now, I think it's pretty needless to say that this is an advanced level piece. Now, with that said, not everything in the song is going to be advanced level. So for example, the opening intro, that iconic keyboard riff, those first few bars of the tune, that's a really solid intermediate level. It's not super duper hard to play. So if you're at that intermediate level, don't be afraid to jump into learning this piece. And even if you don't learn the entire arrangement, you will get better in the process. Now, if you're curious to see how I define the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced player and what each level should be working on, you can click this link to find out. So let's talk a little bit about this lesson and how we're going to break it down and learn it. So I'm going to split this song into 3 video lessons. This is going to be the part 1 video lesson, and in this lesson we're going to be learning the first half of the chord melody. In the part 2 video lesson we're going to learn the second half of the chord melody, and then in the part 3 video lesson we're going to be learning the solos. So there is a guitar solo and the iconic synth solo. So we'll tackle both of those in the part 3. So if you want to watch the part 2 and the part 3 video lesson, you can click this link or go to the site rockclass101.com and do a search for Jump. Now, also on that page will be the tabs that you can print off. There's going to be 2 versions of the tab. We'll have a note-for-note transcription of everything that Evan played, 100% accurate, and then we'll have another transcription that will be titled Andrew's version, and that's the one that I want you to print out and follow along with for all of the 3 video lessons. And it's about 95% the same as what Evan played. I just simplified a couple things here and there, but for the most part it's pretty much the same thing. Now, also on that page will be the interactive on-screen tab viewer. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. And last but not least, we'll have the backing tracks. So if you want to rock out at home, you'll be able to do so. We're going to put the backing track in a few different speeds. So we'll have 100% speed, 75% speed, and 50% speed. So all 3 of those will be available for download as well. So let's go ahead and jump into actually learning this song. A couple things. This is for high G, so grab the high G ukulele. As far as our right hand approach, this is a song that for the most part works well with a 3-finger approach. That means that our right hand, our thumb, is going to be playing string 4 and string 3, index finger can play string 2, and the middle finger can play string 1. Now you can alternate into a 4-finger approach where each finger gets its own string as well, so I'll leave it up to you, but for the most part, 3-finger approach works well for the majority of this tune. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that we're going to be counting out rhythms as we go throughout this tune. So if you're new to understanding rhythmic notation, I'll put an introductory link in the description box below. But honestly, guys, there's no better way to really understand how rhythm and timing connect than by learning to read standard notation. So you can jump into our reading course by clicking that link, and I'll put the link in the description box as well too. Alright, so I'm going to play the first little part of the intro, just a couple bars, and then we'll break it down and learn it. So here's what it sounds like. Okay, I lied. I played the first 4 bars of the intro because, well, when you start it, you can't just stop it. So it's just so fun to play, so iconic. Now, before we tackle or jump into learning the fingering and all that stuff, I want you to think about the song. It's probably a song that we've heard 1,000 times. It's super catchy. So you want to be thinking about how it's being played on the keyboard because we want to mimic that on the ukulele. So if you were to sing it, that's the best way. I know it's embarrassing. You can sing it in your head if you don't want to sing it out loud. But if you were to sing it, you can already hear that. You have these hits, that melody, ba, ba, ba. Da, 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 da. You hear that a lot of those hits of the melody are staccato-y, right? They're not this long da, 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 da. It doesn't have this sustain to it. So you want to mimic that by doing a staccato hit for a lot of those. So as we learn it, I want you to keep that in mind, that this is not a drawn out, beautiful, sustained thing. It's got that pops in it, that staccato-y pops. So keep that in mind, and we'll highlight it more as we go along. But let's go ahead and break down just the first bar. And the first bar sounds like this. Okay, short and sweet. The first thing we notice, all eighth notes. So I'll put up the rhythm hits there. So keep that in mind, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So everything lasts the same amount of time. Now we're playing out of 2 chords. We have this G and we're going to a C, okay? So fingering for the G, take the index, put it on 5 on string 1. The ring is 7 on string 2. And the strings above it can be open for right now, so you can just strum all 4. So memorize that shape, and then what I want you to do is lift the ring finger up, move the index up to the 7th fret, still on string 1, put the middle down on 8 on string 2, and again we can strum the others open. This gives us our second chord shape, just a C chord. So we have G to a C. Okay, so take a second and practice that. And anytime you're practicing chord transitions, you remove the music and you just practice the chord in and of itself. You can put it to a time frame like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so half notes. And that just helps you memorize and get the muscle memory down, so getting the transitions down. So once you're comfortable with that, let's put in the harmony notes. Okay, so it's going to start with an open C and an open G. At this point, we're going to pluck string 1 and 2. So we're plucking the G chord. So we have 3, 4, pluck. Then you're going to hit the G string 2 times. Now that's going to buy you time to move up to that C chord. Okay, so check out what's happening. 1 and 2 and 3. Right? So when I'm hitting those open Gs, I'll have enough time to move my fingers up to grab the C. And when we grab the C, we're going to pluck strings 1 and 2. So we're doing the same as we did for the G chord hit. So 3, 4, pluck, 4, 4, pluck. Okay, we're going to follow that up with 2 more open Gs. Okay, so all together we have rhythmically 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so let's see if we can try together slow. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, now going into our second measure, it's going to sound like this. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happening. Chord-wise, we're going to be doing the same fingering shape as that first chord that we learned, but we're moving it down a whole step. So I want you to take the index, put it on the 3rd fret of string 1, and then the ring finger is 5 on string 2. And again, we can just play the opens above if we want to practice the chord transitions. So this is an F chord, and we're going back to the first chord, back to the G. Okay? So if you want to practice transition, you can go from the F to the G. Same kind of concept as before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's pretty simple because same shape. So go ahead and make the F chord, and I want you to pluck 1 and 2, then hit the open G twice, and pluck it again. Okay? So very simple for this. 1 and 2 and. Now at this point, you're going to hit the open G, move that chord shape up a whole step, so going back to the G, so Sev 5, and you're going to pluck, then hit the G again, and pluck. So in a nutshell, you want to be thinking about the transition note. 1 and 2 and 3. So 3 is that transition note. When you hit the open G, you move up to the G chord. So 1 and 2 and 3 and, okay? So that'll buy you the time to move up. So pluck, 4, 4, pluck, 4, pluck, 4, pluck. Okay? So there's multiple ways you can think of it. You can count out the rhythms, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but you can also call out the hits. Pluck, 4, 4, pluck, 4, pluck, 4, pluck. Okay? Let's try that measure together. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now it sounds kind of weird playing one measure at a time, right? Because it sounds very abrupt. So the key with this tune is to tackle it in 2 bars at a time. So together. Right, it makes a lot more sense context-wise. Okay, so let's see if we can do 1 and 2 together. 3, 4. Okay, so here's where we want to start thinking about that staccato-y hits. You can hear ba da 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 da. Right, so everything is a staccato-y hit up until that very last one. It's going to linger out just a little bit longer. So check that out. I'll play into the 3rd measure. So you can hear that very last hit, the end of 4 in bar 2, I'm sustaining. So the trick with knowing when to do it is just to listen to the original song or listen to this arrangement because it's mimicking the original song. And just memorizing where it is a staccato-y hit versus where it is a sustained hit. So anytime you're doing staccato, it's just lifting the fingers up, right? That's it. So instead of keeping pressure held down, we're just going to lift the left hand fingering up. And it cuts the note. It's touching the strings, so you don't lift all the way up. You're just touching the strings as if you were doing a muted strum, right? You just lightly touch the strings, and that gives you that sound. So let's go ahead and jump into our 3rd measure, and it's going to sound like this. Okay, so let's tackle what's happening. Chord-wise, we're starting out with that C chord that we tackled earlier, and it's going to move down to an F, same one that we tackled in the previous bar, and then we have another version of an F. And this version you already know. Think of the stock F chord. Get rid of the middle finger. There you go. So it's got the F add 9 for here. Okay, so again you can practice 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe walk backwards and upwards. Okay, so that's a good way to practice the transitions. But let's go ahead and jump into it. So we're going to start with the open C to the open G, make the C chord, pluck 1 and 2, then I want you to hit the open G twice. So 1 and 2 and 3. Now that's going to buy you time to move down to the F, so 5 and 3. So pluck that hit. So let's try that. It's a little tricky. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay? At this point, I want you to come down with a slap and go to that F chord without the middle finger and pluck all 4 strings. Now, if you're new to the way that I do this kind of chucking or chunking or percussive hits, in essence, I like to come down with a claw shape. And when I come down with the claw shape, you can see all 4 of my fingers are intact for that 4-finger plucking approach. Because after I come down with a slap, I'm going to pluck that chord, right? So I want to come down with those fingers in line for every string, come down, and then pluck. So if you're new to my method, I don't know how many cards I have, but I'll put a link in the description box below to our lesson on adding a backbeat, aka chunking, chucking. There's a lot of different names for this, adding a slap. Yeah, so I'll put a link to that. You can check it out below if you're new to this method. But let's see if we can put that one together all the way through. So it sounds like that. So we have 3, 4, pluck, 4, 4, pluck, slap, pluck. Okay, let's give it a shot. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now here's the tricky thing. That F that you pluck, that F add 9, it's going to tie. So it's going to linger into the first hit of bar number 4. So your first hit that you're actually playing in the 4th measure is on the end of 1, and it's a 16th note hit. So we're just going to start learning the 4th measure on the end of 1, and then again, remember how I said earlier, play 2 bars at a time to put it into musical context. That's how you really want to practice this tune, 2 bars at a time. So you want to practice 3 to 4. So I'm going to play from the end of 1 in bar 4, but keep in mind that it's tied for the first beat. So let me go ahead and demo that, and then we'll break it down. So I have 3 and 4. Okay, so you can hear very abrupt, right? And we'll put it together 3 to 4 at the end of it. But let's start right there. So remember where you left off. You left off with the F add 9. So we have our index finger in place already. For this measure, we're going to do a hammer-on, 1 to 3 on string 2. After you do that, I want you to come down with a slap on beat 2, and then transition to this G5. So it's probably a chord we played a lot, so watch what's happening fingering-wise. Ring stays where it got hammered onto. Index lifts up, we don't need it anymore. Middle finger comes down on the 2nd fret of string 3. So we're going to pluck 4, 3, and 2 for this G5. Okay, that's going to get tied into beat 3. Then you're going to pluck string 2 on the end of 3, come down with a slap on 4, and then pluck that chord again, 4, 3, and 2. So you have... So very simple, right? Remember, start on the end of 1, 3 and 4, and a 1 and 2 and. Okay? So let's see if we can try together. 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and. And I think I'm counting the beats wrong. Let me try one more time. 3 and 4 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and. There we go. But rhythmically, I think you guys get it. So we'll try again without counting. 3 and 4. Okay, so again, it sounds very abrupt and kind of weird. So let's backtrack. Let's put 3 into 4, and it makes way more sense. So it sounds like this. 3, 4. Right? So much more context. So let's try that together. 3, 4. Okay, and if we backtrack 1 through 4, 3, 4. Awesome. Now here's a really interesting thing. Bar 3 into 4. Memorize that because it's going to get repeated quite a few times throughout this tune. So the beauty with this song is that there's a lot of music to learn, but there's also a lot of repetition. You're going to notice as we go through it that a lot of these 2-bar phrases get copy and pasted as you go. So we may have a lot, like a 4-minute song to learn, but in essence, there's so much copy and paste that it's not as much music as it looks like on the surface. Okay, so here's the other thing too. Those first 4 bars, they're going to get repeated, so you're going to play it 2 times in a row, so in essence, you have the first 8 bars right there. So that's half of our intro. Let's go into measure number 5 now, and I'm going to play the first couple bars of this second section. So I'm going to play bar 5 and 6, and then we'll break it down. And this is a variation. 5 and 6 is a variation. So if you don't want to learn the variation, you can play 1 and 2 again. That's totally fine. It's just a slight little variation to change things up. But here's what it sounds like. Okay, and I played into the next measure. But you can hear it sounds almost the same as the first couple bars. So let's break down what's happening. Now, the first thing is that it starts out almost identical to measure number 1, where we're going open C to open G to the G chord, plucking the G twice open up to the C. Then here's where the change happens. Instead of hitting 2 open Gs like we did in measure 1, we're going to come down with a slap and then pluck the open C. That's the only difference. So beat 4 end is different. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 end. Okay, so let's see if we can try that. 3, 4. Okay, now going into measure 6, we are going back to that F chord, but it's a little bit different. We're going to add an extra finger just to give us a little bit more depth to the chord, a little bit more color. So start with the index down on the 3rd fret of string 1, ring down on the 5th fret of string 2, and put the middle finger above that so it's 5 on string 3. So for this one, you're going to pluck those 3 strings, so 3, 2, and 1, ignoring string number 4. So we're going to pluck, it's going to be a quarter note, so keep that in mind. So we have 1, then we're going to come down with a slap on beat 2, pluck on the end of 2, come down with a slap again on beat 3, move this shape up a whole step with the middle finger still down, and you can see we have a variation on the G right here, right? So same shape. So we're going to pluck that, then come down with the slap again, and we can pluck just the bottom 2 to finish up. So you can lift the middle finger up as well. So again, breaking down this 6 bar, we added the middle finger to the 3rd string. We're going to pluck that, come down with a slap, then pluck it again, come down with the slap, and then move up to the G, pluck, come down with a slap, and then pluck 1 and 2. But the key thing is memorize that rhythm 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and, right? Because it's throwing that quarter note in for that first hit. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay, let's try together. 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay, now we're playing just the bottom 2 for the last hit because as we go into measure 7 and 8, the first hit of measure 7 is the open C. So we need to lift the middle finger up and get rid of it so we can keep that string open and play the next note. Now here's the beauty. When you play 7 and 8, those are identical to 3 and 4. So we're seeing our first copy and paste, okay? So before we get there, let's backtrack. Let's try 5 to 6. So here we go. 3, 4. And I couldn't help myself. I played into the next one. So, this song is just so catchy. But let's talk about 7 and 8. 7 and 8 is the same as 3 and 4. So all that stuff, identical. So if I cycle through 5 through 8, you can hear it's almost the same as 1 through 4. So that's why I was saying if you don't want to play the variation for 5 and 6, you can just play 1 through 4 3 times in a row instead of 2 times in a row. Now let's jump into the ending. This is a different ending, and this is going to be the last section for the intro. And it sounds like this. Here's the first couple bars, and this on the tab is 9 and 10. So iconic little part in the song. So for this one, it starts out with the open C and the open G. That's going to buy you time to move all the way up to this higher voicing. And we have a higher voicing of an F chord. It's a sus chord in this context. So you're going to take the middle finger, put it on 13 on string 2, pinky is 15 on string 1. So we're going to be vamping on this little double stop, which means 2 notes, pluck. So we have 3, 4, pluck, 4, 4, pluck, 4, 4. So all 8th note rhythms, pretty simple. The hard thing is, grabbing this high voice chord. 3, 4, pluck, 4, 4, pluck, 4, 4. Okay, very simple, but let's give it a shot. 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now let's try it again without me killing the C string. So that's another good point. Always be cognitive of how hard you're plucking that 3rd string. It's the thickest string, it's going to ring the loudest because of that. So let's try again. 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay, the next measure sounds like this. Okay, so a couple more hits up on this higher 13 and 15. So it's going to go pluck, 4, 4, pluck, 4, 4. Okay? At that point, you're going to move down the same shape to the 8th and the 10th fret. And you're going to pluck that, and it's going to be a C5. So what you want to practice is just that transition from the F to the C. Okay, so once you feel comfortable with that, let's just put this bar together. 3, 4, pluck, 4, 4, pluck, 4, 4, pluck. That last one's going to be a quarter note as well. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, let's try one more time. 3, 4. Nice. If we put those two bars together, we have 3, 4. Cool. Now, as we go into the final 2 bars for this intro, here's what it sounds like. Okay, so let's break down what's happening right here. So you are going to start out with the open 3rd to the open 4th, then we're going to the F add 9 where it was the 5th and the 3rd fret. Okay, so you have O, O, pluck. Then here's where it's interesting. It's going to go the opposite open. So you're going to start with the 4th string open and then the 3rd string open and lead into that F chord without the middle finger. So you have 3, 4, pluck, 4, 3, pluck. Okay? So there's the first part. 3, 4, pluck, 4, 3, pluck. So all 8th notes, so keep it nice and even. Let's give it a shot. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Nice. Come down with a slap for beat 4 and then pluck the chord again. So together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Let's try that. 3, 4. This is going to get tied into that first beat for the next measure, and you're doing the same little hammer-on followed by a slap and plucking the G5. So all that's the same. If you put it into context, it makes more sense. So when you get to the G5, remember we tied it into the 3rd beat, and to end it, we have that little vocal line that starts, right? Which is, what is the words? I get up and nothing gets me down. I think that's the first line of the tune. I get up, right? So that's what's happening at the end of it. So it's going to be the pinky playing 5, then the middle playing 3, and then the pinky sliding 5 to 7. So all on the A string. But again, putting into context, it starts on the end of 3. Okay? So let's see if we can try those two together. 3, 4. Nice. And if we backtrack, let's try the last 4 bars together. So 3, 4. And if you don't miss the last note like me, da da da, that's what it's supposed to sound like. So I'm gonna leave my little errors in. Know that none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. And even when I was talking to Evan, Evan's performance is phenomenal as always. But even he always sends me a rough draft video. And it's always like, it's a rough draft, you know, it's always a little bit rough, you know, but his version of rough is like, yeah, he's amazing. But, you know, none of us are perfect. He put in a ton of work to get this down. I put in a ton of work to get it lesson ready, but still, you know, we make a mistake, no worries. Play through your mistake. The only time people really know you mess up is when you stop and you try to pick up from where you left off. Okay, so that gives us everything for the intro. So I'm going to go ahead and just play through everything to give you a context of what it sounds like as a whole. And this is what it sounds like, and then we'll jump into the next section of this tune. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and jump into our first verse. Now, this is, I think, probably the hardest part of the chord melody, in my opinion. Especially the last section of it is probably the most challenging. But let's go ahead and break it down. We'll go slow and we'll tackle it bar by bar. So here's what the first little section sounds like. Okay, so let's tackle just up to there. So there's a lot happening. Let me slow it down. So that gives you a better hearing of what it sounds like at a slower pace. So it starts off very similar, right? So we already know how this first little measure goes, and if you're following with the tab, this is bar 13. So we have C to the G chord, plucking the G twice to the C chord, and then here's where the little change happens. You have the open 4 to the open 3rd. So the first 3 beats are identical to everything we did in that intro. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So when you get to beat 4, you're just going open G to the open C. That's the only difference. So let's try that. 3, 4. Okay. Now going into our next measure, it's going to start out with that full shape for that F. So go ahead and put all 3 fingers down. And here's what it sounds like. Okay, so let's break down what's happening. So make that F chord shape, and you can pluck or you can strum this first hit. I think I'm going to strum it. Then I'm going to hit string 3 by itself, and then I'm going to come down with a little bit of a percussive hit. Now I'm doing, if you listen to Evan's performance, he does pretty much throughout the verse on beats 2 and 4 for every measure. He's pretty much doing this percussive hit, right? I find that really hard in some of the parts to do, so I simplified it for my version. I took some of those hits out. But if you want to play it more like him, you can do it. But then again, if you're playing with the band arrangement, adding percussive hits on top of the drums isn't necessarily necessary. So, keep that in mind. If you're playing as a solo piece, cool. If not, just something to think about. Anytime you're working on arrangements, don't feel like you have to play them 100% like we write out. Take it and make it your own. So go ahead and make the F chord. So I'm going to go strum 3, then I'm going to come down with a little percussive hit. So I'm basically just strumming with my nail of my middle and ring finger, but I'm coming down and doing a little bit of a chuck. But the thing is that you want it to sound like that. You want it to sound like a little bit of a chuck instead of something really harsh and not fitting the vibe of the tune, right? So don't kill it, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so strum 3 and then chunk. Okay, and again, if you want to make it easier, just get rid of that. You can play strum 3 strum. That makes it easy. So let's just try up to there. So we have 1 and 2. Okay? Now the next hit, this is a quick 16th note. You're going to do a pull off 3 to open A. So watch what happens. So 1 and 2 and okay, so strum 3 chunk and okay, so let's see if we can try just that. 3, 4. Okay, at this point, you're going to quickly change to this G sus4 chord. And we're going to pluck it twice. So here's the chord graph for it. And all you're doing is, you think of it as the basic G. Instead of the middle finger being on that 2nd fret, you're going to put the pinky on the 3rd fret of string 1. So you're going to pluck that chord twice. So again, the context. Okay, and you can do a little bit of ba-ba staccato for the first hit. 1 and 2 and a 3 and. Okay, followed up with a slap, and then we have a quick 16th note. Open A to open G to end it. Okay, so let's see if we can try that together. 3, 4. one more time. See if I can get that second chord hit. 3, 4. So that's probably one where you just want to hit pause and you want to practice this measure over and over again. It's very, very hard, and you want to go really, really slow. So this is, I think, one of the most trickiest measures in the tune. But again, we want to, once we get comfortable with that, you want to put it into the 2-bar phrase, because then it starts to make a little bit more sense musically. So cycling through those 2 bars. Makes so much more sense putting it together. So let's see if we can do that together slow. 3, 4. So our next 2 measures has a bit of a surprise. Notice it? It's copy and paste again, but it's copy and paste with that ending. So if I play it throughout without cutting it premature. So what do you notice? It's the same as measure 3 and 4 for the first part. 3, 4, pluck the C, open G to the F, slap to the other version of the F, and then hammer, slap to the G5. So it was that same little ending for 3 and 4. And then at the end of it, we have that vocal pickup line. So you already know all of this stuff. All you want to do is tag that little 5, 3, slide to 7 at the end of it. So we won't spend too much time on this one because you already know it. So what we want to do is we want to go backtrack, and we want to try 13 through 16. So let's see if we can try that. 3, 4. Okay. So again, we're seeing so much of that copy and paste, but sometimes they just switch it around a little bit, right? Now let's go ahead and jump into 17 and 18. So let me go ahead and play it, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so we're seeing, again, a lot of copy and paste. If we look at 17 by itself and you compare it to 13, it's identical. So we already know 17. If we look at 18, it's a variation. So start with the F chord, all 3 fingers down, so we can go pluck, 3, then we have that little chunk hit. And here's where the first variation happens. Instead of doing that 3 to open pull off, you're going to go A to G. Same rhythm, ba-da. So it's that quick 16th note hit, but just open strings. That's going to buy you time to take the index and lay it flat on 7, 3 down. You can strum and then hit the first string. So putting that together, 1 and 2 and a 3 and that's what you want to practice. Let's see if we can try that together. 3, 4. Okay, after this, we're going to come down with a slap, and we're going to do 5 to 3 on the A string. So it's going to be ring to the index finger. So a little bit of a jump, so you may want to practice that part. But let's see if we can try it all together. 3, 4. Okay, and again, putting into context, 17 into 18. 3, 4. Okay, so again, not super hard because it's just minor variations that are happening. Now, as we go into our next measure, 19 and 20, you're going to hear and see something again. Here's what it sounds like. It's the same little ending that you played for the third and fourth bar of this verse. So you're doing the same thing as a measure 15 and 16. I can't see that far without my glasses. But it's the same little thing. So here's what we want to do. We want to take 17, 18, 19, and 20 and play it together as a whole. So it sounds like this. Let's see if we can try that together just nice and slow. So here we go. 3, 4. Okay, so again, just a lot of variations. Now here's the interesting thing. When you get to the next one, 21, 22, 23, 24, so the next little phrase, it's going to be identical up to the very last part. So it's identical to the first 4 bars. Up to that last da. So you're playing the first 4 bars that we did for the verse to a T, except for the ending. So if we look at measure 24, think of the G sus chord that we made earlier. We used a different fingering. For this one, we want to base it out of the G5. So if you think about the ending, starting from that section right there, going into bar 24, all you want to do is take the pinky and add it to the 3rd fret of string 1. And we're literally just going to come up, and then strum down for the ending of this. So if I play just 24 by itself, 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4, it's that simple. So let's see if we can try that. So we're hitting on the end of 3 and beat 4. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay? So that's the only little change that happens there. Now, the last section of this next 4 bars, that's the hardest part that happens. So let me play a little bit of it and then we'll break it down. Okay, so that's a good context of what it sounds like. The left hand is very challenging. This is probably, I think, the hardest part of the chord melody, in my opinion. So here's what's happening. We're going to start with a new chord shape. It's going to be the 8th fret on string 2 with the index. The ring finger is 10 on string 1. The strings above it are going to be open. Okay, so this hit that we're going to start with, we're going to strum all 4 strings. So this is just a C5. And actually, we did this shape before. My bad. We did this shape before, but we only plucked the bottom 2 strings. So here's the trick. You're going to strum the chord, hammer on with your pinky to 12. So strum all 4 and then hammer on, okay? Or you can pluck it if you want. That one works too. So we're gonna do that hit with the hammer, then we're gonna come down and we're gonna do a little chuck. You can cut the chuck out if you wanna make it easier, but I'm gonna add it. And I'm gonna target my strum to hitting just strings 2 and 1. So kind of like that. So hammer, chuck, then hit the open G, switch back to the basic C that we did in the beginning of the tune, so 8/7, and then hit the open G. So all 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and... So one more time. There we go. Let's try that together. 3, 4. Okay, stay on this chord, come down with a chuck again, right? Try to target the bottom 2 strings. And then move your index down to 5 and pluck just that note on the A string. So it sounds like that. Let me clean it up. Okay, let's give it a shot. 3, 4. Okay, so very, very tricky. You may want to just practice that one over and over again. Now here's the really hard part. This next chord shape. So let's tackle the first part. So take the index, lay it flat on the 5th fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. Add the ring finger to 7 on string 1. G string is going to be open. So it's F major 9, but here's what makes it hard. You want to keep this ring finger planted, and you're going to strum the chord and then reach with the pinky to 10 on string 1. Now, if you're new to playing stretch chords, stretch phrases, anything that requires your index and your pinky to have this big reach, this big stretch, then I'm going to put a link in the description box below to a lesson on 3 exercises for increasing your left hand reach. So it's going to help tremendously anytime you tackle things like this. So if you've not done stretch stuff, don't do the chord and stuff. You can just play the melody note. So Sev 10, you just play as a single note, kind of like that. But assuming you have got the stretch and stuff down, let's go ahead and add it. So we're going to strum the F major 9, add the pinky to 10, and then here's the kicker. I'm going to keep this chord intact and add these extra 2 notes. So sounds like that. So I got strum 10, then I'm going to do a tap and play the second string and then play the third string by itself. So remember, it's barred 5-5. So this tapping and playing a melody note at the same time, I did an entire tutorial on how to do that. I'll put the link in the description box below. It's literally just called tapping a backbeat plus playing a melody note simultaneously. Not the catchiest name, but essentially that's what it is. If you don't want to do that, you can just pluck the notes normal, like that. But if you want to keep that rhythmic feel of putting the backbeat on 2 and 4, we have to play with the tap backbeat. Okay? So again, I have strum 10, tap, and 5 on string 2, and then 5 on string 3. And that's it. You can take a break, and that's the hardest part right there. Now, here's what happens after that. So after you play this chord, you're going to transition into this G6. Now, I know I wrote this G6 as flat because we had done it earlier. I think we did it earlier, or it's coming up later, and we did it earlier, yes. We did it as flat, but for the context of this bar, you want to use 3 fingers. You want to use middle, ring, and pinky. Okay? So you're going to go strum 1, slap, and then put the index on 5 and slide down to 3. So the ending is not that hard. 3 and 4 and okay, so we have strum 1, slap, 5, 3. All right, so let's see if we can try that together. Now the transition is tricky. Okay, so you want to just practice really, really slow for this one. But if we try together, we have 3, 4. Okay, one more time. 3, 4. Okay, so again, this is probably the hardest bar, these 2 bars together. So practice them nice and slow. So let's backtrack, let's try them together. So here we go, slow. 3, 4. So one more time, 3, 4. So yeah, very, very tricky stuff. But here's the beauty. These next couple bars, everything is identical, right? So C to the F to the second version of the F, and then the hammer to the G5. And then you have an alternate little ending, which sounds like this. So in the context, sounds like that. So this little ending here is just going to be playing the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and then we can slide up with the pinky and go sliding up to the 7th fret and then ending on the 6th fret. So kind of like that. Okay, so again, taking it from the last measure, 28, so starting on the end of 1, 3 and 4, and slap, G5, 3, slide, 6. That's what we end up with. And that leads us into the pre-chorus. But if we backtrack the last couple bars together, 25, 26, 27, 28, sounds like this. Okay, so those are the ones that you just want to practice. Those are really, really, really challenging bars. But let's do this now. I'm going to go ahead and just play through everything for the first verse so you can get a context of what it sounds like as a whole. And then we're going to wrap this lesson up. So here's what it sounds like. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up everything for our part 1 lesson. So we've literally got the first half of the chord melody down. Now in the part 2 lesson, we're going to learn the second half of the chord melody, and then there's going to be a part 3 lesson where we learn both solos. So the guitar solo and the synth solo, which is super fun. So if you want to jump into the part 2 lesson, you can do so by clicking this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com and do a search for Jump. Now also on that page are the tabs that you can print off, keep for your records. Don't forget there's 2 versions. There's a note-for-note transcription of what Evan did, and then there's the one that we've been learning, which is Andrew's version. And there's also the interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can hit play, you can watch that tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz, plus the backing tracks. If you want to play along with the band, you can do so by downloading them. We've got 50%, 75%, and 100% speed, so you can start slow and work it up to speed. It's a great way to practice. So again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I will see you in the part 2 one. Take care.